This is what happens when you push the quiet one too far. The silence before the storm. Listen closely. You stand before me now, and I speak to you not as some distant voice, but as the darkness that whispers in your quietest moments. I am the shadow you've tried to ignore, the truth you've buried beneath politeness and restraint. You, the quiet one, the one they overlook, the one they underestimate, the one they push and prod and test, believing your silence is weakness. They mistake your restraint for fear, your patience for submission, your calm for defeat. But I see what they cannot. I see the furnace burning behind those silent eyes. I see the storm gathering in that disciplined mind. I see the power you've been containing, compressing, refining in the crucible of your solitude. They think silence means empty. They think quiet means harmless. They have forgotten the most fundamental law of nature. The predator moves in silence. The avalanche builds in silence. The earthquake gathers its strength in silence. And you have been gathering yours. Every insult you swallowed, every injustice you absorbed, every moment you chose restraint over reaction. These are not acts of weakness. These were deposits into an account that will one day demand payment with interest. Compound interest. You see, the loud ones, the aggressive ones, they spend their power like fools spend gold, flashy, immediate, and ultimately meaningless. They punch at shadows. They scream into voids. They exhaust themselves on battles that don't matter, fighting everyone over everything, until they have nothing left when a real war arrives. But you conserve, you calculate, you watch, you learn. While they're busy performing their strength, you're actually building yours. While they're advertising their dangers, you're becoming truly dangerous. There's a reason why the most lethal forces in nature give no warning. The bullet doesn't announce itself. The venom works in silence. The black hole doesn't roar. It simply consumes everything that crosses its event horizon. They've been crossing yours, step by step, insult by insult, violation by violation, and you've been keeping count. Oh yes, you've been keeping perfect count. Every transgression cataloged, every boundary crossed, noted, every disrespect filed away in that meticulous mind of yours. And now they wonder, why has the temperature dropped? Why does the air feel different when you enter the room? Why do their jokes no longer land? Why does your silence now feel like a threat instead of an invitation? Because something has shifted. The equation has changed. The quiet one has finally had enough. The alchemy of suffering. Let me tell you what happens in that silence. That space between the insults and your response, between the aggression and your reaction. Let me reveal the dark alchemy that occurs in the mind of the quiet one who's been pushed too far. Pain becomes focus. Humiliation becomes fuel. Rage becomes precision. While the loud ones scatter their energy in every direction, you funnel yours. You channel every ounce of suffering into a singular, laser-focused purpose. They created this. They forged this weapon with their own hands. Every time they pushed you, they were sharpening the blade that will eventually cut them. This is the secret they don't understand. Suffering, when properly refined, becomes the most potent form of power. Not the suffering of the victim who wallows. No, the suffering of the strategist who transmutes. You don't just endure pain. You metabolize it. You break it down and rebuild it into something they cannot comprehend. The quiet one learns to see patterns others miss. In your silence, you observe. You notice the tells, the weaknesses, the cracks in their armor. While they're busy talking, you're busy learning. While they're performing confidence, you're mapping their insecurities. While they think they're winning, you're studying exactly how they'll lose. You've had time, so much time to think, to plan, to perfect. The loud ones act on impulse. You act on strategy. They react emotionally. You respond tactically. They fight battles. You win wars. And here's what terrifies them once they finally understand. You don't need to be loud to be devastating. You don't need to threaten to be threatening. You don't need to posture to be powerful. Your strength isn't in the noise you make. It's in the space you occupy, the energy you command, the inevitability you represent. When you finally move, it won't be a tantrum. It won't be an outburst. It won't be a loss of control. No, it will be the opposite. It will be the most controlled, calculated, and complete response they've ever witnessed. It will be surgical. It will be total. It will be final. They pushed the wrong person. They mistook depth for emptiness. They mistook consideration for cowardice. They mistook your humanity for weakness, never realizing that the most dangerous humans are those who choose restraint not because they must, but because they can. You gave them chances, so many chances. You extended grace they didn't deserve, patience they didn't earn, forgiveness they didn't appreciate, and they threw it back in your face. They interpreted your mercy as an invitation to escalate. They saw your boundaries as suggestions to be tested. Now the testing is over. The lesson begins. The awakening. There comes a moment, a singular, crystalline moment, when something inside the quiet one fundamentally changes. It's not dramatic. There's no announcement, no declaration of war, but everything shifts. It's a moment when you stop hoping they'll change. The moment you stop believing they'll understand. The moment you stop caring if they like you, respect you, or even fear you. It's a moment when their opinion becomes irrelevant, their approval unnecessary, their acceptance unwanted. This is your awakening. This is your liberation. This is when you stop playing their game and start playing yours. You realize that you've been operating under false rules. Rules they wrote. Rules that serve them. Rules designed to keep you contained. Be nice. Turn the other cheek. Take the high road. All beautiful sentiments. All useful tools of control. They want you nice because nice is manageable. They want you accommodating because accommodating is exploitable. They want you quiet because quiet is convenient. But convenient for whom? Not for you. You're done being convenient. You're done being the one who always adjusts, who always compromises, who always absorbs the impact to keep the peace. You're done being the shock absorber for their dysfunctions, the punching bag for their insecurities, the scapegoat for their failures. The quiet one awakened is the most formidable force in any room, because now you're not fighting for approval. You're operating from sovereignty. You're not seeking permission. You're claiming authority. You're not asking for space. You're taking it. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it immediately. The shift in your energy. The change in your eyes. The edge in your silence that wasn't there before. Suddenly their jokes don't land the same. Their provocations bounce off an invisible shield. Their attempts to diminish, you somehow diminish them instead. Because you access something they can't touch. Your own power, uncoupled from their validation. You found the source within yourself, and it's infinite, and it's dark, and it's beautiful, and it's yours. They created this version of you. They summoned this energy through their persistent disrespect. They called forth this shadow through their relentless pushing. And now that it's here, now that it's awake, now that it's loose, they want to negotiate. They want to reset. They want the old you back. Too late. The old you died in the fires they set. What stands before them now is something forged in those flames, harder, sharper, immune to the manipulations that once worked. You're not broken. You're rebuilt. You're not damaged. You're refined. You're not destroyed. You're transformed. Before we continue into the depths of this transformation, I need you to do something. If these words resonate in your chest like a war drum, if you feel this truth in your bones, then mark your presence. Hit that like button not for me, but as a declaration to yourself that you refuse to be pushed any further. Drop a comment below with a single word that describes how you're feeling right now, and subscribe to this channel, because what's coming in the next chapters will complete your awakening. This is your army. This is your tribe. These are the ones who understand. Now let's continue. The execution. Now comes a part they never anticipated. The execution. Not of violence, but of will. Not of revenge, but of justice. Not of emotion, but of principle. The quiet one, once pushed too far, doesn't explode. Explosions are chaotic, wasteful, indiscriminate. No, you implode their world with precision. You dismantle their reality with calculated moves. You remove yourself from their equation. And suddenly, they realize how much of their structure depended on you being there. You were the foundation they built their disrespect upon. You were the audience for their performances. You were the absorber of their toxicity. And now you're gone. Not physically perhaps, but energetically, emotionally, strategically. Gone. And they panic. Suddenly, they remember your value. Suddenly, they recall your contributions. Suddenly, they recognize your importance. But this recognition comes too late, tainted by desperation rather than genuine appreciation. They don't miss you. They miss what you provided. They don't regret their treatment. They regret its consequences. Your execution is elegant. You don't need to attack. You simply withdraw your energy. You don't need to fight. You simply refuse to participate. You don't need to burn bridges. You simply stop maintaining them. And the bridge collapses under the weight of their own toxicity, which you are no longer supporting. This is the power of the Quiet One. The ability to make your absence more powerful than your presence ever was. They took you for granted, and now they'll take you as a lesson in your professional life. You execute by becoming unavailable. The late nights you worked covering for others, finished. The extra miles you went unappreciated, discontinued. The exceptions you made that became expectations, revoked. You do your job, nothing less, but also nothing more. And suddenly the machine doesn't run as smoothly. Projects stall, quality drops, problems accumulate, and they realize the Quiet One was the linchpin holding everything together. In your personal life, you execute your boundary enforcement. The calls you always answered now go to voicemail. The plans you always accommodated now require your genuine availability. The emotional labor you always provided now must be reciprocated or it simply isn't offered. You become selective, discerning, protective of your energy. And suddenly they realize the Quiet One was the glue of the social circle, the emotional center, the reliable one. But here's the beautiful brutality of it. You're not doing this to manipulate them back. You're not doing this to teach them a lesson. You're not even doing this to hurt them. You're doing this because you finally learn to value yourself as much as you value it. You're doing this because your peace matters more than their comfort. You're doing this because you've evolved beyond the need for their approval. And that's what makes it so devastating. The purity of your intentions. You're not playing games. You're not seeking revenge. You're simply and finally choosing yourself. And against that level of authenticity, their manipulations have no power. Their guilt trips don't land. Their gaslighting doesn't work. Their attempts to reframe you as the villain slide off your newfound self-respect like water off stone. The Quiet One's execution is complete not when they beg you to return, but when you realize you don't need them to. Your validation is internal now. Your peace is protected now. Your power is claimed now. The reconstruction. After the execution comes the reconstruction. This is where you build your new reality. Not on their terms, but on yours. Not in reaction to them, but in response to yourself. Not to prove anything, but to become everything. The Quiet One has a secret advantage in reconstruction. You've been observing, learning, and planning in all that silence. You know what doesn't work, you lived it. You know what you don't want, you experienced it. Now you get to architect what you do want, what does work, what serves your highest evolution. You reconstruct your boundaries with steel and clarity. No more fuzzy lines they can deliberately misinterpret. No more maybe that they can manipulate into yes. No more gray areas where they can operate their disrespect. Your boundaries are now explicit, enforced, and non-negotiable. And if someone can't respect them, they simply cannot access you. Simple, clean, powerful. You reconstruct your circle with ruthless discernment. Every person is evaluated not by their words, but by their patterns. Not by their promises, but by their actions. Not by who they claim to be, but by how they consistently show up. You curate your inner circle like a museum curator selects masterpieces. Carefully, intentionally, only allowing in what elevates a space. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth, authenticity over popularity. The Quiet One doesn't need a crowd. You need a tribe, and now you're building one with intention, with standards, with vision. You reconstruct your self-perception with truth instead of their projections. All those years of absorbing their judgments, internalizing their criticisms, accepting their diminishment, finished. You look in the mirror and see yourself clearly now, without the distortion of their insecurities projected onto you. And what you see is powerful. What you see is capable. What you see is worthy. What you see is unstoppable. This reconstruction phase is sacred. This is where you don't just recover, you upgrade. You don't just heal, you evolve. You don't just survive, you transform. Every brick you lay in this new foundation is placed with consciousness, with purpose, with self-love. And as you build, something magnificent happens. You attract different people. You create different opportunities. You generate different results. Because you're operating from a different frequency now. The frequency of self-respect. The frequency of boundaries. The frequency of power reclaimed and properly directed. The people who pushed you too far can't exist in this new reality you're building. The frequency is wrong for them. The standards are too high. The respect is too fundamental. They'll either evolve to meet you there, or they'll fade into the background of your past. A cautionary tale, a learning experience, a chapter that needed to happen so this one could begin. You're not bitter. Better. You're not resentful. You're refined. You're not stuck in the past. You're building the future. And in this future, the quiet one is quiet by choice, not by suppression. Powerful by nature, not by compensation. Selective by wisdom, not by wounding. The legacy. Now we arrive at the final truth, the ultimate lesson. The lasting legacy of what happens when you push the quiet one too far. Transformation is contagious. Your evolution doesn't just change you, it ripples outward. Other quiet ones see you and recognize themselves. They see your transformation and realize their own potential. They witness your boundary setting and find permission to set their own. They observe your peace and understand it's possible for them too. You become the proof, the evidence, the example. Not by preaching. That was never your style. But by being, by demonstrating, by living it. The ones who pushed you too far will become your most effective marketers, though not in the way they intended. They'll talk about you. Oh yes, they'll talk. They'll try to explain what happened. They'll attempt to justify their confusion. They'll struggle to articulate the shift they felt. And in their talking, they'll spread your legend. The quiet one who stood up. The gentle one who found their roar. The patient one who ran out of patience and became something undeniable. Your legacy is this. You show that silence is not weakness. That patience is not permission. That kindness is not cowardice. That giving someone a chance is not giving them power over you. That being quiet doesn't mean being powerless. It means being selective about when and how you deploy that power. You proved that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one who's been underestimated. It's the one who's been watching. It's the one who's been learning. It's the one who's been pushed too far and has finally decided to push back. Not with noise, but with purpose. Not with aggression, but with absence. Not with revenge, but with results. Your legacy is teaching them that you don't break quiet people. You activate them. You don't suppress power by ignoring it. You concentrate. You don't win by pushing someone too far. You lose by discovering exactly what they're capable of when you do. Every person who watches your transformation learns a vital lesson. Respect the quiet ones. Not because they're weak and need protection, but because they're strong and choose restraint. Not because they can't fight, but because they're selective about what's worth fighting for. Not because they're afraid of conflict, but because they understand that the most devastating response isn't always the loudest. You leave behind a blueprint for others walking the same path. For the young person being bullied, who stays silent but sees inside. For the employee being taken advantage of who documents everything while appearing compliant. For the partner being disrespected, who's quietly making exit plans. For everyone who's ever been told their gentleness is weakness. Their silence is submission. Their patience is unlimited. You show them. Gather your strength in silence. Build your power in private. Plan your moves in stillness. And when you finally act, make count. Make it clean. Make it complete. Make it a lesson they'll never forget. And a version of yourself you'll never regret. The quiet one pushed too far doesn't become the villain. You become the warning. You become the cautionary tale they tell. Don't underestimate the silent ones. Don't mistake stillness for weakness. Don't push them, because when they finally push back, the whole world shifts. And in the end, you realize the greatest gift they gave you wasn't their respect. They never had that to give. The greatest gift was pushing you hard enough, far enough, long enough that you finally discovered your own power. They forced you to find your edge. They compelled you to locate your strength. They pushed you until you had no choice but to become the fullest, most powerful version of yourself. So thank them, not to their face, not in words, but in your spirit. Thank them for being the catalyst for your transformation. Thank them for showing you what you're capable of. Thank them for being the resistance against which you built your strength. And then move forward into your new reality, where you are no longer the one being pushed. You are the immovable object. You are the force to be reckoned with. You are the quiet one who was pushed too far and came back as something magnificent. This is what happens. This is the legacy. This is the warning. This is the truth. You made it to the end of this journey, and that says something about you. You're not just watching. You're recognizing yourself in these words. You're not just listening, you're preparing. If this speech ignited something inside you, if you feel that dark fire burning brighter, then complete your commitment. Like this video to mark this moment in your transformation. Comment below with your declaration. Tell me what you're no longer accepting, what boundary you're setting, what version of yourself you're becoming. And subscribe, because this channel is for warriors like you. The quiet ones who are done being pushed. The silent ones who are becoming powerful. The patient ones whose patience has expired. Join us. The army of the awakened quiet ones is gathering, and we are unstoppable.